Now that we have spent some time going over the entire Proxyclick system, we're going to break down each individual section. We'll start with booking a visit. While we went over the process of booking a visit, there is still more that we can cover, and we'll get a little deeper into the process, how people can see it, getting those permissions, things that may come up in a support-related chat. One of the first places to check for issues when someone reports that they cannot book a visit or they cannot see a visit is the permissions section. Permissions run everything. Permissions guide everything that a user will see within Proxyclick, and permissions can be updated at any time, whether on purpose or whether by accident. If a user does not have access to view permissions, they will not be able to figure out what has changed. We'll take a look at the user rights, which may also be called permissions, and highlight those that impact a user and their ability to book and see visits. If we scroll down to the visitors section, we see a number of permissions that do impact how someone can utilize Proxyclick. The ability to create a single visitor, a recurring visit with no end date, which we touched upon in the overall demo. Creating a group of visitors, creating visitors on behalf of others. This is also one that may come up more commonly, just because this is a situation where one person is managing multiple calendars and doesn't understand why they cannot change their name from the host when they're booking a visit. The ability to change the status of visitors, which is checking in, checking out, and expected. Being able to see all visitors of the day means that that logbook view will show every single visitor in a location. If this permission is not checked, a user will only be able to see visits that they booked. The final one is to delete visits in the logbook. This is a permission that is more about the data and the integrity of that data. If a location does not want to give their users the ability to manage this particular permission, it can be turned off, and visits that are on the logbook cannot be deleted unless requested by someone higher up, usually an administrator within that location. If we are approached in support with any of these requests, we always ask the user to check with their administrator first. And this is for multiple reasons. The two top reasons being we do not want to go into an account and make changes because we do not know whether or not this person is authorized to make changes. Second, this could be an issue that is impacting more than one user in a location, and we want to make sure that the admin is notified. Now that we understand a little bit more about the permissions that are associated with booking visits, one more time we'll create a visit and go a little deeper into what we see on the visit page. Beyond this standard information for the visit is the host, which is where we will update the name of the host if it is not the person who books the visit. As with anything else in Proxyclick, in order for an employee to be able to have their name listed in a host, they have to be added to the system. They don't have to log in, they don't have to use Proxyclick, they just have to be added as a user. We can't only add one host. If I try to add someone else's name, we get an error. That's where we can dive into these customized notification options. These are most commonly used for a single instance. If I wanted to add a number of people that need to know that this guest is going to come on site, I can add as many as I would like. These people will all get a notification when the visitor checks in. Now you may have noticed that there is a user already in these fields. They have set up in their permissions to be notified of every visit. This person cannot be removed. If we move down the page, we will find the custom questions that need to be answered for this visit. The questions that do not have optional next to them are mandatory questions that must be answered by the employee in order to book the visit. Any question that has optional next to it or is below the show more, show less dropdown do not have to be answered by the employee. These questions are intended for the guests to answer when they do their registration, but these here cannot be left blank if a user wants to book this visit into the system. We always recommend putting in the most amount of information possible and double checking that this information is all correct and valid for reporting purposes. One of the main benefits of ProxyClick is the ability to obtain this data whenever it is needed, to know that it's correct, that it's legible, and that the information has not been altered. We'll take a little bit of a turn and go further into the data. Now that there are so many people working hybrid, working off-site, working remotely, having all of these visits added to this system can give anybody who is on-site or off-site access to this dashboard. Meaning somebody who works on-site 3 days a week will know who they need to see when they come into the office in 2 days. That facilities manager, that security manager, that administrator who needs to double check on the number of guests coming in to possibly have extra kiosks or extra people at their front desk can pull this information without going into the office. Now, clicking on the visit is going to expand the visit activity. And this section is not only where we can view any changes that have been applied to the visit, but we can also notify other users. We can add extra notes, we can add files, we can add more information. If you wanted to notify another user about this guest, or if they needed to follow up with this guest, simply typing the @ sign and any of the users that are on site. Tagging Easton will send an email to let him know of this note. Now, if I wanted to make changes to this visit, once the dashboard reloads, we notice there's more information under the Activity tab. We can also see now that the dashboard has reloaded that the note is visible on the dashboard to anybody who may be able to see it. But we now see that the check-in time was revised by Pearl McGuire on May 2nd at 2:10 local time. This timestamp will always be in the local time of the person making the changes. We also see that the checkout time was revised. Any item that's revised, changed, or updated will have its own timestamp in the Activity tab. And again, this is to ensure that the data in ProxyClick is not compromised, and if there are ever any questions, that we can go ahead and go back to the person who made those changes to find out why they were changed. Before we wrap up, we're going to take just a moment to look at a recurring visit in the past. The changes that you will notice is when we go into the edit visit, all of this information is grayed out. And the reason all of this has been grayed out is because this visit is in the past and the recurrence is over. These two fields, these custom questions, can still be revised because this is information that will be stored on a guest's visitor profile. Okay, that's a deeper dive into the booking visits feature for ProxyClick.